Oh. Okay. Here, I'll step a little farther away from you so we don't.
Can I bring up a couple more people?
Yes,
here?
please.
My cinematographer Jim Frona is here. Come on up here, Jimmy. And my producer Sebastian. Go ahead and go. Come on up, guys. That's a big dinner in Seattle.
Let's go in order really quickly. Ethan, I was talking to somebody about your short earlier today, because they just asked me what the title is, and they were like, oh, it's called Fuck the Parents, and they were like, oh yeah, I hate my parents too. No, that's not quite what this film's about. Can you tell me where the idea for this film came from?
Yeah, well, they say to write what you know. Yeah, I mean, that was sort of a deliberate mislead. I hope that nobody saw it coming. Yeah, I mean, I think that something that I find really interesting trying to do in comedy is take things that are really absurd and surreal and treat them as realistically as possible. I'm a big fan of Louis and early Woody Allen and any film made in the 70s. So that's something that I tried to do here, is take a relatable feeling for me, which is liking my girlfriend's family more than my own family, which is something I struggle with every girl that I've dated, which is almost 5, and treat that in an absurd way that's also relatable.
Great. Yeah. Well, Jill, thank you for joining us with your film and bringing all the
Glad to be here.
Yeah. Can you tell me a little bit about Silver Lake?
I think it's a little bit like this neighborhood.
It is a little.
From driving around this neighborhood, I think they're similar. Silver Lake has a lot of families and a lot of strollers and a lot of moms and some money and some hipsterism and a real sense of achievement about we've made it. You know, we're in a cool part of LA that would probably make the pages of a Sunday style section of the New York Times, but also possibly a bit of emptiness. What's next, you know?
Yeah. I related a lot. Yeah. Do we have any questions from the audience about the film? Yes, sir.
So how much of your script or your shooting was improv and how much was scripted?
You know, almost all of it was scripted. The Women in Wine and Poker, poker, there were no lines written for the poker scene. It was just playing poker. The Women in Wine scene, they did a lot of improvising when we were shooting, but they ended up coming back to what was in the script. We used 2 cameras, we did 22-minute takes, and we let the actors have the whole run of the first floor of the house. And we weren't saying action, we weren't saying cut, we were just really trying to just make it as real as possible. So I would say, like, in Women in Wine, about maybe 10-15% of that sequence ended up being improvised, but most of it was in the script. They were so natural the way they did it.
Can you tell me about the actress that plays Kosher Amanda?
Oh, that's Annie Mamalo.
Yes, I've seen her.
She's also in Ethan's movie.
Yes.
She is the co-writer of Bridesmaids.
That's right. That's why I recognize her. She's,
yeah.
Is she?
Yeah.
I mean, she has like 4 scenes and almost steals the movie.
She's hilarious. Who knew that you just cut to her for a laugh?
Yeah.
Reliably.
Any other questions or comments?
I kind of did. So was that, like, it seemed to me like a main turning point. I don't know, when you filmed it, like when she wasn't allowed to babysit, and then kind of like she was put back into that position where she couldn't rise above. Is that kind of, that's just kind of how I saw it. It was interesting to watch.
I do notice, like, at that moment there's a shift in tone in the film, in the storyline, essentially. It's very light and it's kind of like, what did she can't believe she did that. And then that's sort of the line that she crosses where she kind of ruins everybody's lives through her actions.
Rachel.
Yeah, Rachel.
Yeah.
Yeah, and do you feel like she, did she have to sort of go to that place to become a better person herself? Is that sort of what the story arc was, or?
Yeah, I thought of the movie as sort of a series of circles, and that I sort of called it a heroine's journey, meaning that the movie moved in these sort of concentric spirals, as opposed to a lot of movies which are the hero's journey. This movie allowed these 2 women to sort of switch places between good and bad multiple times throughout the movie, so that you weren't quite sure who to root for. And I felt that, yeah, in that moment at Jack's, Rachel saw something that she hadn't expected to see. But I don't think that what Rachel saw was a kind of like disturbing sexuality. I think that what she saw was somebody, Jack, who was very comfortable being seen. And that caused her to, I think, go further into a place where she couldn't, manage being in her own body anymore, being in her own life. And the reality kind of changed. She was, she saw McKenna, she couldn't live in her fantasy that McKenna was a babysitter or a college student or her daughter or her younger self or whatever her fantasy was. Reality set in, and it shouldn't be incongruent that a sex worker can't take care of children.
Yeah.
But it's funny when Michaela's character Jenny goes, "Oh, I love her." We're all thinking, "Well, I wish you could have seen what she was doing last night."
Yeah.
But that incongruity, I think, in our culture is something that I wanted the movie to address.
Yeah, it did really, really good job
Yeah,
of addressing
good.
that. On the back.
Yeah, there is a kind of really amazing moment towards the beginning of the film when she's in the strip club, right? And you kind of shoot really with shallow depth of field, really up close to McKenna. And it seems like there's this moment where the protagonist realizes something. I'm wondering if you just talk about that moment and what you thought was supposed to happen during that scene.
Well, in the script I wrote, I was pretty underwritten. It just sort of described it as Rachel moves back and forth through the feeling of mother, and then sister, and then being turned on. That she traveled through all three of those places, wanting to take care of her, wanting to be her friend, and then wanting to sort of experience her as a man might experience a woman in a strip club. Don't mean to be heteronormative, as one might experience another in a strip club. Sorry about that. I know it's Seattle, guys. I'm just getting my lay of the land here. Takes me a second. Just got off the plane a few hours ago. But, yeah, so that was all I wanted her to do, was sort of be all three of those.
I did notice the glitter escaped McKenna and got onto her a little bit too. You can never avoid those things. Yes?
I thought it was a really cool circle, and now that you've named that, it's a circle where she went from being with Rachel and Jack to buying things to play with the little girls with. That was, it's not only the social incongruity of a sex worker and a babysitter, but the internal incongruity for her, having both of them.
Yeah.
I like where you placed that moment too. It was right after she sort of asked her husband to tell her that she was, and then you had that moment of her shopping, and it's such a heartbreaking scene of her going shopping for all the little baubles to play with the girls that she's not going to be able to use. Was that always the pacing at that moment?
Those two moments were always written as being intercut.
Good.
From each other, yeah. That was the way it was intended in the script. Other things moved around. There was actually a scene before that. There was a scene in the script, actually, after Jack's and before the next morning when the brunch happened, where Rachel got up. She couldn't sleep. She got up. She had her period. She couldn't find any tampons. She went downstairs to McKenna's room and was like on her knees in the bathroom looking for tampons. McKenna comes in. She's like, "Oh, they're right here. You have your period. I have my period too." And then they kissed. This was called the tampon kiss in the script and when we were shooting on the schedule. It was this beautiful scene. And to me, it was about this heroine's journey, feeling of like, this might actually make sense in Seattle, that the sisterhood amongst them was crystallized in this moment, that they had their periods at the same time, that women sort of had that bond with each other. But it just made the whole movie seem like it was about being a lesbian, so we had to take that out. It just was it made it too much like, oh, she was attracted to her and that's why she brought her home, and it really feels more like a fairy tale, sort of feminist fairy tale for me. So we pulled that out. So that was really the turning point in the movie. The scene was no longer necessary, but that was the turning point after Jack's. It was almost like a kiss goodbye. So yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I always like to know what
Yeah,
got
that
changed,
got
you know,
cut, but
what-
that was a turning point.
That's right.
I felt like the scene at Jack's that the looks that McKenna was giving Rachel was save me. First they would show her interacting with Jack like, oh daddy, but then she would peer down at her and like, I don't want to be here. Was that the tone you were going for?
You know, everybody has seen that scene differently. Some women see that movie and they think it's like totally disturbing, and they feel like, you know, one woman like we saw was really super hung up on the use of the word daddy, like, oh, this McKenna has a problem, you know, where she's only comfortable being fetishized and fetishing an older man, or some sort of actual relationship to McKenna's missing father. I didn't really go that far to really think about what McKenna wanted from Rachel in that scene. I think McKenna wanted Rachel to see her. I think McKenna was sort of daring Rachel to, okay, you want to know what it is, this is it. And I feel like McKenna knew that things were going to explode, and she was on the way to making them exploding. But I didn't necessarily feel that she needed to be saved. I mean, that's a conversation that I'm hoping that the movie inspires among people about the idea of rescuing sex workers, rescuing homemakers. You know, what's more necessary?
Yes.
On that scene you were just talking, I thought it was so reversed. I thought it was one of those flips where McKenna was very concerned about whether Rachel was comfortable.
Oh.
She was maybe about to bail, you know, to leave the room. She did, you know, I thought that she was being maternal toward Rachel. This was her profession, and Rachel wasn't comfortable. She was just trying to say, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody projects different things onto different parts of the movie, and I love that two people saw the same scene, and one felt like McKenna was saying, "Get me out of here," and one felt like McKenna was, you know, worried about her. I've heard both interpretations.
One thing I liked about the film when I first saw it is that I waited the whole movie for the title payoff. Because I love the song Afternoon Delight, and it wasn't until the very last scene of the movie where they sort of finally had that amazing sex moment together in the afternoon. And was that always sort of the build-up? And how did you choose Afternoon Delight as the title for the film?
Well, it starts with an A.
That is one of the important rules.
It's very important. It's early in the festival listings, and when it's on VOD, it's going to be one of the first things people hopefully get.
Yeah.
I don't know. It wasn't the first title. The first title was Father's Day, because the movie sort of used to take place around this idea of getting their husbands, you know, this experience with a stripper on Father's Day. So, yeah, made a list of like 10 other titles, and Afternoon Delight just kind of rose. People seemed to like it.
All right.
And then we couldn't make it go away. While we were shooting, we were thinking of all kinds of new names. My Right Hip was one of the names. My Right Hip.
All right.
Now that I watched it, I feel like it should be named The Sex Worker. But it's about Rachel, because sex is work for her. But that's a lot to explain.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm wondering, you said just a moment ago that you felt like this film was a bit of a, not a feminist manifesto, but certainly had feminist overtones. And I'm wondering if your choice of women's roles in the film are related to feminist thought about women who lack choice. You know, a homemaker on the one hand and a sex worker on the other.
Yeah, I mean, I am constantly thinking about feminism. I'm constantly thinking about how to take some, you know, what I find some of the most interesting feminist ideas and put them into the conversation, the cultural conversation. I think there's a real moment right now in feminism where, you know, we have sex-positive feminism, which is awesome. Strippers and porn stars and housewives and moms have all kind of aligned. Yet I think there's still questions among everybody of like, well, should you save your friend who's a hooker, or should you let her be a hooker? Is that the best way to earn a living, or should there be better health insurance? These sort of post-feminist, even the questions that come up in Women in Wine about there are complicated conversations around abortion, and there are complicated conversations around sex work. And I feel like as a feminist, we're really only allowed to have the one conversation. People had abortions and it didn't affect them, and sex workers are powerful, which are the political party lines, which of course, I, claim as my own. But I love the conversation, the questions, both of those, and I feel like as a liberal person, I love being able to start those conversations.
All right, I think we're getting the signal we need to wrap up now. So yeah, let's do the one in the back there, and then we'll stop.
Can you talk about the scene where Rachel and McKenna are in bed together and Rachel is not feeling well and kind of going through their experiences with that?
Yeah, so that actually, again, sort of goes with the whole healing the divided feminine thing that is, that sort of drives my work and what's at the heart of this movie. The idea is that our culture suffers from a divided feminine, that women and other women don't get along or work together because of their own internal divides, as well as divides in our culture. So during that scene, when McKenna is sort of drawing the line down her body and sort of noticing her divide, and then I think McKenna's using her hands to create like a circuit of energy to rewire Rachel, because there used to be a line where she used to put her hands on her and say, connect your heart with your womb, and it was cheesy. So it went away, but that's about connecting, it's about reconnecting Rachel's body, and yeah, that, and I think Rachel threw her off. When you look at the movie and ask these questions of what's Rachel going through, I think she gets closer and closer to knowing herself and knowing McKenna, and then just kind of runs away as she gets closer and closer. And that was a scene where, she just, I think, had to push her off for, again, maybe not being ready to become herself yet. And I think McKenna was pushing her towards connection, and Rachel didn't want to be connected that way yet.
Okay. Well, thank you, Jill. Thank you for joining us.
Sure. Thanks, guys.
So this one's coming out this summer. We'll be playing it August 23rd. Yeah, say one more thing.
It's coming out August 23rd, guys. Keep an eye out for it in the paper. It'll be here in early September. If you liked it, send a friend. Opening week.